Go.
Hey everybody, David Swor here with DJ Cox and our Frenemies podcast. We're so excited today to have a good friend on here today with us to talk about the Pirates, and that is Matt Kerns. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Loving the shirt. Big Office fans right here. That's right. DJ's he's sporting his Willie Stargell Pittsburgh Pirate hat. That's a 70s model right there, DJ.
Oh yeah. This actually turned out well. My printer messed up here, but I was like, man, this is the Stargell hat from back in the day.
It looks like it's kind of even got that floppy look, that they had back in the day. So I'm liking it. So we're here today to talk a little bit about the Pirates. The Pirates, for me and Matt anyway, they're one of our most local teams. And so we get to pick them up a lot on Fox Sports. And so Matt was an obvious guy to pull in here to talk about it. And so, Matt, let's start off with the 2019 season in review. Tell us a little bit about what happened with the Pirates last year.
Well, wasn't very good. There's not much to brag about here. We kind of were talking before, and like you said, I didn't really follow them very, very closely at all during the season. And then when we started talking about having this show and talking about the Pirates, when I started digging into it, I thought, my goodness, it's the bad thing is, and I know I'm jumping ahead here, but 2020 it looks worse than 2019 to me. But man, to start out the way they did, it looks like they were kind of overachieving, and then just fell apart there in the second half, and it all went to down the drain from there.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before the podcast. So the Pirates were 2 games out at the halfway point, which I didn't know. It's amazing. But, DJ, tell us everything that happened to the Pirates after that.
Whew. Yeah, like you said, these guys were in it for a while, and you kind of forget about that with the way they just absolutely collapsed. We talked about in the Cubs podcast how much they beat up on the Cubs last year, which is a big reason why the Cubs were so bad as they were last year. But getting beat by the Pirates is – I tell you what, Matt, I was telling David this, like I just, as a Cubs fan, the Reds last year and the Pirates last year beat the Cubs a ton, and that killed our season. If the Reds beat us this year, I understand it a little bit more, but not that last year's team. It's just crazy. And for them to fall apart like they did was unreal. They ended up going 69-93, the second worst team in the NL after being that close at the All-Star break. Only the Tigers and the Rockies allowed more runs than they did, which shows you that their pitching was terrible. Jamison Tyon, their ace, was out, went down, didn't pitch much, was 2-3, then blew his arm out. These guys gave up 5.62 runs a game last year, and they don't have the offense to overcome that. Let's just be honest. They've got some good hitters, a couple I should say, but they can't overcome a 5.62 runs allowed last year, which is a problem. We were talking about this in our last one. They got Chris Archer. They traded Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow to the Rays, and the Rays just stole them from them. Well, the problem with that is Archer last year was 3-9 with a 5.19 ERA, just absolutely terrible. And then they got a guy that's going to prison forever, their closer. So what an absolute destroyed season and off season for the Pirates last year. We'll get into this a little bit more later on, I'm sure, but their off season, holy cow. Wow. So they collapsed. They completely hit rock bottom after being in it for a while, and I don't really know what happened exactly, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah, so from the looks of it, from the outside looking in, it seems like not only did they have terrible luck with Tyon and Vasquez, but the culture was just completely toxic. So, Keela, who was their best reliever after Vasquez last year, he goes down in a fight. And then they got in a fight, I believe, with the Reds, where a whole bunch of guys got suspended. So that resulted in Neil Huntington and Hurdle and all the coaching staff being gone, which they needed to be. It sounds like, I don't know what Huntington's been doing. I don't know the exact stat, but I think the Pirates have only had like 4 winning seasons in the last 30 years. I believe that's correct. And, man, I went back and looked at some of these teams that they've had. They've had some good players. but they can't seem to turn those players into more good players. You know, the Pirates are in the same boat as a lot of small market teams where they need to turn these guys, you know, into some prospects, and it seems like even the prospects they get stink. So maybe a new look at the franchise will help them going forward. But Kerns, let's double back to you. So 2020, tell us about what you think the biggest strength of the Pirates is going into 2020.
Before we get 2020 real quick, I found an interesting stat that kind of blew my mind about the 2019 Pirates that I wanted to share with you guys. This team last year lost 39 games by 5 runs or more. And just to put that in comparison, the Reds, which were not a good team at all, which is my team, but they were not good at all. They only lost 19 games by 5 runs. So 20 more games than that, they lost by 5 runs or more. And I can't break out when it happened, but I would assume that a lot of that happened in the second half. So anyway,
yeah.
I thought that was interesting. But to answer your question, you said what was the biggest strength for them, you think, this year?
Yeah, coming into 2020, yep.
It's going to be their lineup, and unfortunately, I don't even think that's a strength. But if you're talking about a bright spot, you know, you're talking about guys like Josh Bell, Colin Moran, Brian Reynolds that you have in the lineup. But other than that, man, strength-wise, I don't see it anywhere else on this team at all.
DJ, what do you say, buddy?
I mean, he totally stole what I was going to say, man. Josh Bell is obvious. This guy's a stud. There's no doubt about it. 37 bombs, 116 ribbies. He had a 367 on-base percentage last year, which is outstanding. Moran I like as well. 13 bombs, 80 ribbies, 277, a 320 on base. Bell's a beast. And to be honest with you, I think the rest of this lineup's awful. So they've got about 7 position players and 5 starting pitchers away from being a contender. So they're in some trouble, man. They're really not even close. And one of the things that, you know, I struggle with too is you look at a team like this, and you know, Starling Marte was one of their better players last year. They shipped him off. They got rid of him to the Diamondbacks for some prospects, you know, and I'm okay with that in the position they're in, but those prospects better be good because Starling Marte is a good player, and he's still got a lot of good going for him. And if they didn't get prospects for him, man, are they they're in some bad shape if they didn't get good guys. I don't know much about the guys they traded for, but they better turn out to be really good. These guys just, I mean, I'm the same way that you were just talking. I mean, 2 guys I could talk about. The rest of it, honestly, it's pretty bad. So I'm going to go with those 2 guys. That's it.
So I'm going to go with that as well on the lineup. I'm going to give them a little more credit than DJ though. You know, I looked through their lineup. You know, they don't, outside of Bell, they don't have any studs, but they've got some solid players. Brian Reynolds is pretty solid. Gregory Polanco, when he plays, pretty solid. Newman, that came up for them last year, he looks like a future cornerstone piece for them. You know, he's a nice piece. And so while none of it's overwhelming, you know, a few weeks ago we did the Marlins, for instance. I'm going to give their lineup a little bit better grade than the Marlins.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The difference in the Marlins and the Pirates seems to be what's coming behind. You know, the Marlins had some position battles coming. It was kind of hard. To be honest with you, and we'll talk about it in a minute. It's hard to find a position battle with the Pirates. They got these, like, mediocre guys that are entrenched, and there's nobody you can look on the list and be like, oh, this guy might take this guy over next year. And so it appears to be just complete mismanagement. I mean, keep in mind, these guys had Garrett Cole, you know, and, you know, we talked about the Archer trade. They had those 2 guys. They've had Starling Marte. They've had players.
Gotcha.
You know, Ione 2 years ago, you know, he had an awesome year. And, you know, they just can't seem to put it together. And that just seems to be the Pirates for the last 30 years. So this is going to be hard to pinpoint, Matt, but what do you think the biggest weakness going into 2020 is?
Well, to me, it's glaring. I mean, the pitching all around is not good, but the rotation is just straight up terrible. I mean, I don't honestly know. I mean, the Reds have had some bad rotations over the years in the early 2000s. This is right up there with those. I mean, you got Joe Musgrove as your opening day starter projected to be with a 4.44 ERA. That's just not going to cut it in the major leagues. And unfortunately, you know, you've got 4 guys behind him that don't look any better. They all look to me like mediocre starters in the league, and right on that cusp of even if they're going to be in the league. So for me, the rotation is the weakness that they have.
Yep. DJ?
100% agree. You don't have Tyon. You don't have Vasquez at the end of that bullpen anymore. So your pitching is completely in shambles. They're bad. One of the worst rotations I think we have in baseball. I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. Like you said, Joe Musgrove is a workhorse. I'll give him that. He threw a lot last year. He was 10-11, so he battled. He wasn't terrible. I saw him a lot pitch against the Cubs. He'd keep him in the game somewhat for a little while, then he'd fall apart. And if that's your ace, whoo, you're in some trouble as a franchise. I mean, he's a good guy for like a 4 or 5 pitcher, to be honest with you. And so on some teams, he's not even making the rotation. I mean, let's just be honest with some of these rotations out there, and he's the ace of a team. So that kind of shows you where they're at. Trevor Williams is average at best. And I saw today Derek Holland signed with them, and he's penciled in as their 5th starter. Yeah. Good Lord. Derek Holland is your 5th starter. And I know, like, 5th starters are not going to be maybe as big of a deal this year, but you still got to get 12 starts out of them. Then they're going to move into the bullpen. So it's not going to be that crazy, but the Pirates don't have to worry about it because they ain't making the playoffs. So you basically have that guy run out there every 5 days. He's terrible. I mean, let's just be honest. He was good back with the Rangers a little bit, but, man, he's got no shot really. So the bullpen's a joke. It really is. Not many guys out there. There is one guy named Nick Birdie. Nick Birdie is from Downers Grove South High School, which is 6 miles from where I coach, Westmont High School. This guy's good. He's got a chance to be the closer this year. He can top 100 miles an hour. He's a really good ball player. He went to Louisville to play college ball. So local product there, Nick Birdie, for one of the guys that you could possibly look out for in the bullpen. But, man, is that bullpen weak too.
Yes, I'll ask you guys a question. We're both all 3 fantasy sports followers. What happened to Trevor Williams? So, obviously last year, bad year. The year before that, 14-10 and a 3.11 ERA and 31 starts. It's pretty daggone good. Obviously the Pirates were banking on that. They were banking on him and Tyon being the 1 and the 2 probably, and Archer in that conversation. What's the deal with Trevor Williams?
I don't have an answer that's going to be a good one. I do think, maybe what we're seeing and kind of it came to my mind when DJ brought up Starling Marte. Maybe there was just a bad culture there, and they just got rid of everybody that had any bad karma around them or any kind of bad past, and just maybe there was a situation going on there. Maybe he's not as bad as he was last year. Maybe he's not as good as he was the year before that. But I mean, I don't know what happened. But yeah, you're right. I noticed that too. He was a guy that was pretty reliable there in 2018, but man, last year he was not the same guy. So whether he had a nagging injury or something, I don't know the answer to that question. But I guess if you're a fan of the Pirates, you hope that the 2018 version is what you're going to get more of as opposed to the 2019 version. And we'll just wait to see.
So I'm gonna go with you guys on the weaknesses, the pitching. But I'm gonna say this: maybe they're just a pitching coach away in the rotation. They've got nice arms. They've got Archer, who's been a stud. They got Williams, who you could say has been a stud. Musgrove appears to be at least serviceable. Their top prospect, and his name slipped me, I don't have it here, Mitch Keller. Runs it up to 100. Potential to be a stud, a top 30 prospect at one point. And so I'm not totally flushing their rotation at this point. But the mistake I think the Pirates have made is, man, their bullpen is horrible. It's just horrible. You look down through there, and there's not a whole lot of even interesting names in there. Sometimes teams will sign some journeyman guys. You think, well, maybe this guy could do something. There's not even that. And so these starters are going to be on an island. They might get them a lead into the 6th inning, and then, it's just going to be gone. So I'm with you guys on the pitch, and especially the bullpen. It's a weakness. The rotation, I'm not going to throw it completely under the bus just yet.
You're not gonna throw that rotation under the bus?
I'll throw it under the bus if you want to look at last year's stats, but what I'm saying is there's reason to hope here. All these guys, three of the four I just named, Mitch Keller's a prospect, have been good at certain points. Last year, 2 years ago, we just reeled off that Trevor Williams had a 3.10 ERA and 31 starts. That's a pretty good sample size that, hey, he's been good. And we all know what Archer did. Now, it's been a while since he did it, but what I'm saying is there's at least potential there. These guys have at one point in time at least been good, and Mitch Keller was a top prospect. And so, again, if you want to look just at last year, yeah, it's a dumpster fire. But I'm with Matt. I just wonder how much of it was just culture and how much of it was just going in the towel.
The problem that you have is if we're talking about 2020, Tyon's not going to pitch, and neither is Archer from what I'm hearing. So those guys, yeah, for the future, okay, you've got a point there. But for this year, Derek is not a good guy, but he's a guy that, you can plug in here and say, okay, we need a serviceable starter. And so you can see why he's there. But for this year, that rotation gives you no hope for this year. Now going in the future, yeah, Archer and Tyon, Keller and Williams, that's the, if Williams picks it up this year and you get Keller developed a little bit more, that's a good solid 4. But for this year,
yeah. So Matt, let's talk about best case scenario for the Pirates this year.
For me, the best case scenario for this team, and I think even at this would be a very overachieving, would be 500 club. They do have some young guys in the lineup that can hit, and if they do hit, they can put up some runs. The bad thing is just going to be they're going to have to win, 8 to 6 ball games because of that pitching staff. And but let's just say the pitching staff somehow puts it together a little bit, or these guys just bat out of their minds. 500 to me is the top of the line of expectations of what you're going to get out of this team this year.
Yeah, DJ.
Yeah, I agree. 500 would be a great season for them, really. If they end up going in that first half like they did last year, somehow we were shocked that they did that. They do that again this year, they could be in some pretty good shape. So I don't see it happening, though. I really don't. Finishing out of the cellar, I think, would be their dream scenario where they don't finish in last place this year. Just to be honest with you, to jump over one of those teams in the NL Central would be an accomplishment for them this year. I really believe that with the 4 teams they got with them, knocking one of those teams to the bottom would be a productive year. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like you guys have been talking about, Keller's a stud. If he develops and can go with Tyon in the future, moving ahead with those 2 guys, and you build around Moran and Bell on the offense, and you've got 4 guys there, 2 offense and 2 pitchers that you can start to form and shape this team a little bit with. But they've got to start spending money, and they got to start going out and getting some guys, or this is going to be for nothing. And best case scenario this year is they just develop Keller and try to get out of the cellar.
So I think Marcus said something really smart when we had him on the Marlins podcast, and I think it totally applies to the Pirates. The Pirates need an identity. Who are the Pirates? You look down this list, you can't recognize any of those guys. So to be honest with you, I think best case scenario for the Pirates is some of these veterans play good and they can further blow this thing up and start getting some interesting prospects through better scouting. Because let's be honest, what's the plan with the Pirates? We're going to talk about it in a minute. You look at their farm system; those guys are a long ways away. Anybody they have, it's even halfway interesting. So, what would be great if I'm a Pirate fan is if Josh Bell comes out and rakes, and then somebody gets desperate for a first baseman at the trade deadline, and I get 2 good prospects for him or something. Same with Gregory Polanco. If Archer pitches or whatever, if he could start out great and somebody just need him. But the team that's here now, there's no future. There's no way they're jumping any of the teams in front of them. I can't see anybody. Any of the teams ahead of them could be playoff teams. And the Pirates are just so far away from that. Best case scenarios to me, veterans play well, everybody else progresses, and they blow up and keep going. So Matt, what is worst case scenario?
For me, the worst case scenario is the guys that they do have on the roster, like Brian Reynolds and Colin Moran, Mitch Keller, these young guys that we're talking about that could be centerpieces or building blocks, that these guys regress, and that instead of moving forward like they did in 2019, that they go back. And, we've all seen some instances and can probably think of players that, given the player in the right team situation, can be successful. But if you get them in the bad situation like you could have here, these guys might have short careers. And, unfortunately, I think if they regress and these guys don't play like they did last year or don't improve, then that will be the worst case scenario as a Pirates fan, is to see these guys take a step back when you're already at the bottom. It's kind of a low expectation type thing.
Yep. DJ?
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. Finishing last place, where the Pirates fans are looking to the Pittsburgh Steelers games already when they're 5-15 on this season, and they're jumping ship to football and don't even show up to the games anymore, which is kind of Pittsburgh-like, as we know. And, that's another scenario where, these guys got a lot going for them, and I don't really know why they're not taking that jump. Clint Hurdle, I thought, was a good manager for these guys for a long time. I respect that guy. Derek Shelton's their new manager. I don't even know who this guy is. He was the Twins bench coach last year. He comes in. Let's just say, these guys take a step back. Rookie manager. I mean, how long do you listen to a guy like that when you get buried in the bottom again? And that's a tough situation for a manager to walk into. If they're going to have patience with them and let them try to develop things, then yeah, that'd be a good thing. But they've got to give a manager like this a little bit of time. I think a lot of times in the major leagues now, you don't produce, you're kicked to the curb pretty fast. And with this ball club and the way it's built, man, you got to give a guy like Shelton a little bit of time here at being his first time manager.
Yeah. I think we saw worst case scenario last year with the Pirates. I don't think you could have drawn it out any worse. So worst case scenario this year would just be a repeat of last year, bad culture. If you got bad culture again, you start wondering if you have the right manager. So worst case scenario for me is just a continuation of last year, bad attitudes. Is there anything worse to watch than a bad team with bad attitudes? Who wants to watch that? Nobody. And honestly, man, looking over the last few years, I feel sorry for Pirates fans. If you're out there and you're a Pirates fan, man, you have all the respect in the world from me, because 4 winning seasons in 30 years would be really, really hard to take. And it doesn't look any better in the future. So worst case scenario for me is, like Matt says, those guys don't develop and the culture stays the same. So let's talk a little bit about prospects. We talked a little bit about Mitch Keller. Who are some prospects that can give you some hope, Matt?
To be honest with you, I didn't write them down. I did check last night, and I was looking at the top 100 list that MLB puts out every year, and the Pirates only had 3 in the top 100. I think their top one was about 39 or something. Mm-hmm. So really, when you're looking at a club and you've only got 3 and you're this young, to me, that's just, like you said, the farm system's a ways away. It really seems like management has no clue what they're doing here, no plan for the future, at least in the past. Maybe now going forward with this new management that they will. But, man, here for the past 30 years, apparently, it's just been let's just wing it, it seems like. They've had guys come through there that obviously could put the team together to win. But when it comes to answer your question, prospects that I see, I don't see anybody on here that really gets you super excited about, seeing them come up and playing. So,
yeah. What do you think? What do you say, DJ?
I'm going to stick with Mitch Keller. I'm going to talk more about him because this is the guy, okay? I really believe in this guy. He's the number 1 prospect for them. He's got a cup of coffee last year with this team. He came up a little bit. He struggled, okay? There's no doubt about it. But I don't think it matters too much with him. He's kind of the chosen one for the Pirates. 36 and 22 in the minors with a 3.12 ERA, which is pretty good. He's 24 years old. He's a 6'2", 200 righty, 98-mile-an-hour fastball. And he's pretty consistent in the zone, too. He's got a heavy sink. He struggles a little bit with his command on the sinker from what I hear. If you can get a sinker to go down the middle and then die, as you know, David, that's a nasty pitch. And I think he spikes it a little too early sometimes from what I've been reading. And if you're spiking your sinker, you're in a little bit of trouble. You got to have that look like a fastball and then just die off. So I know he's working really hard on that pitch. But this guy, from everything I've read, is the real deal. And you know, in a year or two, if he can develop and get up there toward the top of the rotation guy, he can be there like a Garrett Cole was for a long time with them guys. And I'm going to focus completely on him. And that's a good stat, Matt, talking about 3 guys in the top 100. That's not good at all. You would think a team that's on the bottom here like this would have been developing prospects and getting some guys, and they just really have not. And you know, even with the Starling Marte trade, that's what I'm talking about. I was talking about who did they get from the Diamondbacks? Are these top 100 prospects? Well, obviously not yet on the list, you know. So that's a shame because Marte is going to do a lot for the Diamondbacks, and these guys probably aren't going to do anything for the Pirates. And that's where you get into a lot of trouble as we've seen with a lot of trades around baseball. You better make it count. So
guys, I got a trivia question for you. You'll know where I'm going with this here in just a minute. Who caught the final out of the 1996 World Series?
1996 World Series.
Come
Would
on.
that be Posada?
No, it's Charlie Hayes. Come on, DJ.
Oh, the foul ball. Okay, I thought you said caught, and I thought, well, who's the catcher?
The reason I'm bringing up Charlie Hayes is one of the Pirates' top prospects is his son,
Oh, wow.
Brian Hayes. And he's actually pretty close to Major League ready. From everything I'm reading on him, you know, they're expecting him just to basically be an average player. He's more of a contact hitter. But that's the best I could come up with. Charlie Hayes, for me, was a fun guy to watch. He was a clutch hitter. He made some clutch plays. He was kind of catty with Wade Boggs there at the end of Wade Boggs' career. And so if Brian Hayes can be as good as his dad, then they have something there. But he's one of the top 100 prospects that they have. And doubling back to Matt's point, one of those top 100 prospects is the guy that's already in the majors, Keller. And
Yeah,
so,
right.
wow, I mean, how is it possible that you've had top 5 draft choices probably for the last 15 years, and none of them are making it? So anyway, they rank their farm system the middle of the pack. It's hard for me to give it that much credit, to be honest with you, because everything is so far back. Half of their top 10 list played last year for the good old West Virginia Black Bears. So that's a rookie ball league for those of you guys that don't know. And so anything can happen. And they got 3 more levels to come up before they get to the majors. And so, you know, bad scouting by the Neil Huntington front office with the Pirates.
Hey, David, where does Brian play? What position does he play? That's an interesting one. I hadn't heard of him. So what position does he do?
Yeah, he plays third base.
Oh, just like that.
Really good fielder. Like I said, I looked through his stats from last year. I don't have those in front of me. Yeah, I do. Only hit 10 homers in AAA. Only hit 265. So, again, not an eye-popping prospect, but he's got some what's the word I'm looking for? He's got some family history that says that he could be a pretty good ball player, useful ball player. And when you're the Pirates, you got to hold on to something, man. You got to believe in something. So at least you knew this guy's dad was good at one point, right? So.
Hey, David, does your shirt, whatever the West Virginia Cyclones or whatever that minor league team is, do they play at Bluefield?
No, they don't. They actually play at a brand new stadium, Mon Ballpark, which is where West Virginia Mountaineers play up near Morgantown. And it's a really, really awesome stadium. On a side note, Matt, we could talk about this a little bit with DJ. So Charleston used to have the Pirates affiliate, and we built a brand new ballpark. It's awesome. It's downtown, and guess who's losing? They already lost their Pirates affiliation, so we were a Mariners affiliate last year, but now we're losing our team. So with a stadium that's what, Matt, 15 years old, something like that. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. I'm really aggravated at MLB over this minor league I could go a whole episode on that, no joke. Here you're taking baseball out of these small places when what does baseball need right now? More fans. And you're taking it away from people that can actually watch games. It's ridiculous. But anyway.
Talking about that team, David, I know we're talking about the Pirates, and they've had quite a few people that have made the majors come through there. Before that, they were the Brewers affiliate, and they had guys like Ryan Braun, Yvonne Gallardo, Lorenzo Cain, Michael Brantley came through there. They've had some good teams there. So, yeah, it's a super, super big deal for us to lose that team.
Yeah, Charleston has a rich baseball history. Matter of fact, I'm going to talk about a former Charleston Charlie here in a minute.
Sure.
But it's just a travesty that these small towns are losing these teams. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox here in a minute on that. All right, DJ, you got us some trivia, buddy?
I do, and I was happy to hear that Matt was going to join us tonight. So I got one for both of you guys tonight. Matt, you should probably get this one. This is a pretty easy one. Who was the famous center fielder for the Pirates from 1987 to 1994?
Man, that's not even a trivia question.
Yeah, come on, DJ.
Barry Bonds, man. That's
no, not Barry Bonds.
Andy Van Slyke, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Kerns, I got one for you. Me and DJ already talked about this. What Hall of Famer played for the Pirates and is from West Virginia?
Bill Mazeroski.
Boom!
Woo!
Yeah, I learned that on your podcast.
Oh, okay. You heard that one. Dag on it. That's right. I hear. I had another one here. Well, you got anything else on the trivia end, DJ? I had another one, but I can't find it.
I do. I got one for you, David. You ready?
Yep.
All right. This former Pirates first baseman from 1985 to 1990 and the Braves from 91 to 93
Good brain.
visited Temple when we were there.
Too easy.
I'm too easy. See, you last week you're pulling out who was the closer for the 1967 Tigers. I'm like, what is the closers? Come on.
Who's the Rays? Like a franchise is 15 years old or something. I mean, come on.
Get out of here. Who's the leading closer for the team? Nobody cares about closers.
Well, you got it right.
I did get it right because I'm a genius.
Oh, man. Kerns, we always talk about stadiums here. So the Pirates played at Three Rivers, is that right, before their current stadium? And, of course, they have the new stadium, and the name is slipping me right. PNC Park. So have you been to either?
I have been past Three Rivers when it was still there, and I actually have been to a game at PNC Park. And just to tell you how long ago that was been, Sammy Sosa played whenever I was there.
Yeah.
It was very early when that stadium had opened. It may have been open like a year or two. I can't even remember when it opened, but it was a pretty much a brand new stadium when I was there. And quite honestly, it's a great place to watch a game. When we've talked many years about going, and we've just never worked it out. But man, I'm looking forward to the day that we get to go because just my memory and recollection of that. We were in the outfield, and it was still like a super great experience, and just a beautiful setting, and there on the river, and just a great place to watch a game.
Yep. So me and DJ had the honor of going. Was that last year, DJ?
2017.
2017. Okay. And DJ, what did you think about the park?
I adored it. I really did. I absolutely love that stadium. It was one of the ones I really wanted to see. Everybody had talked it up about how nice it was. And we sat in the upper bowl behind home plate. And if you're going to go to PNC, I believe that's the spot to watch the game. I'm a big bleacher guy. I love to sit out in the outfield for games. Normally that's my spot, but me and David had talked about it, and we wanted to sit up there. You get the view of the bridges and the downtown Pittsburgh area, and you get to watch a game off of that. Just an awesome experience for us. I actually have a picture here. I don't know if you guys can see that little picture there. That's the four of us there. Me and David actually paid these two beauties to be in the picture with us. So these two are with those girls with us. We actually paid them ladies to be with us. And then This is me and David with Roberto Clemente.
Yep.
So, yeah, I loved it, man. We had a really good time. That was a blast. That was just the four of us. We kept all the kids at home, which was very rare for all of us, I'm sure, and went to a game and got to experience it. I loved it. I've never been to Three Rivers before they blew that, but that looked like a piece of garbage, to be honest with you. Whew, I mean, that's got to be one of the worst looking ballparks I've ever seen in my life, to be honest with you, and didn't look like a real nice stadium at all. But they've done it right here, and that's what we're talking about. Is man, when you've got the city of Pittsburgh, it really is a great sports town. You know, they support the Penguins really well there, and you know, we're talking hockey, David. They support the Penguins, buddy, and so you know, these guys. And they're the Steelers, you know, these guys really come out hard for them too. And for the Pirates, you know, have to have all that going from a good fan base, a great stadium. Man, they got to switch things around. They really do, because they got a lot going for them. And it's just kind of sad to see, you know, when we were kids, the Pirates were legit. I mean, they were outstanding in the 80s and early 90s. And, you know, they've had a few ball clubs since then that are all right, but I mean, from the time we were kids until now, I think you said it already, David, there were 4 winning teams in our lifetime at least. And just, that's just hard to believe.
It really is. So I'm gonna admit this was a hard thing for me to pick out. So Kerns, who is your all-time favorite Pittsburgh Pirate?
Well, of course, you could pick guys like Roberto Clemente, and he obviously played before my time and following the league, and you know, you hear great things about him. There's obviously an award.
Deep tracks only, Kerns. Deep tracks only.
Deep tracks. Oh man, Under Mifflin, yeah. We need to start an Office podcast, like the Office, you know, rewatch podcast.
We need to do that.
Anyway, side note. So for me, I mean, this might be a little surprising, but for me, it's Barry Bonds. This is pre-roided up Bonds. You know, I actually enjoyed watching him play. I remember as a kid watching him play and thinking, you know, this guy was really good. You know, so for me, it's Barry Bonds as my favorite Pirate. I mean, I know that's kind of going back a little bit, but for me, that's the guy I would go with, especially if you look at the fact that, you know, kind of the dichotomy of this guy was this really skinny guy that kind of was more of a speed guy than a power guy here in Pittsburgh. And then he transformed his career in San Francisco and went to a completely different type of player. So for me, I like the young Barry Bonds.
Yep, I agree with that one. What do you say, DJ?
Man, I could literally talk for hours about Barry Bonds. I really could. I have a love-hate relationship with that guy. I really do. To me, he's one of the hardest guys to talk about, and it'll be really hard for me to talk about to my kids about one day. Just the whole legacy of Barry Bonds and what a pick there, Matt. I mean, but this guy, to me, if he's not a steroid guy, he's the greatest player by far of our generation, of our lifetime, no doubt. I still don't put him past Babe Ruth, but I got to say he's the second greatest player of all time. And, you know, in those Pirates days, he was not on the juice. And, man, was he fun to watch. Those teams with Bonilla and Van Slyke and Bonds and Mike LaValliere and Jay Bell, all those guys, and Doug Drabeck, and what a team that was. And they were really good. Sid Bream, just loaded with talent. And, boy, Barry Bonds, man, that gets me up and down all the time. David knows this. It's like love-hate relationship big time with him. But I'll go with Roberto Clemente. You know, Matt, you talked about it a little bit. That guy, 3,000 hits on the nose, outstanding career. Great Puerto Rican player, went down to Nicaragua, unfortunately at the age of 38, died in a plane crash toward the end of his career. Just very sad ending to a great life, great human being. Cannon for an arm in right field. Stellar defensive player. When you think of the Pirates, you think of Roberto Clemente first, I believe. And that's one of the things I kind of wish we would have got the opportunity to do, David, when we were in Pittsburgh. There's a Roberto Clemente museum there if anybody goes to Pittsburgh. And the day that we went and found it, we actually just came upon it, if I'm not mistaken. It was closed. We didn't even know it was there. We were just going to go. And I guess you got to pre-order like a ticket or whatever to have them open up for you. But that would have been really cool to see the Roberto Clemente Museum and all the things that he did in his life. And I mean, he had a 300 average for a career. That's outstanding. 333 on base, great right fielder. Like I said, just awesome. So that's my guy by far.
Yeah. Couldn't go wrong with either one of those picks. Both should be Hall of Famers, DJ. Should be Hall of Famers. Barry Bonds should definitely be in the Hall, even if it's his own wing. So I want to go with a more recent guy. And this is for selfish reasons. I always wanted him in pinstripes. It never happened. They talked about it all the time on Yankee boards. But I'm going to go with Brian Giles. You know, Brian Giles had about an 8-year run where he was the man. And I went back and looked at his stats today. And, I mean, right around 40 homers literally for like 8 straight years. Walked more than he struck out several of those years. So he was a stud, a player always respected. And, you know, even on some of those more recent teams, even in the 90s, man, you had guys like Jason Bay. Man, Jason Bay was a great player. You know, there was another guy there that I was trying to think of that played with the Pirates, but it's slipping me right now. But, man, I used to love those teams from the 90s. Me and Kerns used to play some wiffle ball out in the backyard, and we'd assemble those lineups. But, man, like you said, when you got Bobby Bonilla, Barry Bonds, Jay Bell, Mike LaValliere, Andy Van Slyke, you know, I mean, those were some good teams. Like you said, Doug Drabeck. But like I said, I'm going to stick with Brian Giles as my pick for selfish reasons. And I was going to bring this up. So Dave Parker supposedly, and Kerns, you can probably correct this story if I get out of bounds here. Our ballpark for the Charleston Wheelers and the Charleston Charlies used to sit right on a train track. And he hit a ball that landed in a coal car that they always used to say traveled from here to Chicago or something like that. So Dave Parker, he hit some 500-foot home runs. I always like to see Dave Parker too.
Did any of you guys see the special on Dave Parker that they made, the MLB Network, by any chance? Outstanding. They call it the Cobra. So if you can find that somehow to watch that on Dave Parker, I think it's an hour and a half special just on him, and you'll really enjoy that, David. That's that guy was something else, man. When you actually look at his career, you're like, man, this guy's got a Hall of Fame case, and a lot of people believe he is a Hall of Famer, and they fight about it to this day. So
I think he's got as good a case as a lot of guys that have gotten in. Don't get me started, DJ. But, you know, Dave Parker, I'm thinking he had right up close to 400 homers. If not, maybe even a little bit over. I can't remember. I've looked at his stats before, but he was a great player. Played on a lot of good teams too. So, well, with all that said, guys, I think that kind of wraps up the Pirates. You guys have
So, one of my favorite things about baseball, and you guys have talked a little bit about this in your other episodes, is guys with rocket arms in the outfield throwing guys out. My all-time favorite Pittsburgh Pirate highlight is the Jose Guillen throw. And I watch it a couple times a day. And just, you know, he totally whiffs on the catch, but then he makes up for it with his throw. And so I looked today, and I was just kind of goofing around and looking at it. But statistics, they did some statistics on it. The ball traveled 335 feet in 3 seconds. You think about what kind of a cannon that is.
Wow.
I mean, that's just unbelievable. But, you know, I like to YouTube those kind of things like guys getting thrown out. But that throw, he was a Pirate at the time. You know, that's what made me think of it. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there for the Pirates and my favorite highlight of the Pirates.
So what did they calculate the velocity of that throw?
I didn't see that part. It was just, you know, I Googled the throw and got the YouTube video to come up, and it was like related questions. And one of the questions was how far did it travel? And so I looked at that, but I did not see what the velocity would be. I guess if you did math and you were very good at it, you could probably figure it out. But I'm not that great at figuring out velocity. But I mean, it's got to be up there, right? I mean, it's going over 100 feet a second, so that's got to be.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, man, you're so right about that. When you talk, you always have that little debate on who has the greatest throwing arms from the outfield, and you always forget about Jose Guillen. And, man, did he have a cannon. You're exactly right about that. Great point, Matt. I've seen him make some throws that just make your mouth drop. Like, how is that even humanly possible? You always call out the guys like Vladimir Guerrero and Dawson and, guys like that always get the love, and Clemente and guys we were talking about there, and Jose Guillen, definitely top 10 rifleman from the outfield, no doubt.
Absolutely. I when we went to Yankee Stadium, the only time that I've been, you guys remember Mark Whitten?
Oh, yeah.
I saw him take a ball and throw it to the top of the upper deck at Yankee Stadium. Amazing. That's a lot longer than you think it is. And anyway, that's my little story as far as great arms go. I mean, he had a cannon as well. But Jose Guillen, man, I remember that throw. It's been a long time since I've seen that video. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, well, as I always say, like a good preacher says, you guys got anything else? All hearts and minds clear?
I'm going to say something else real quick because we talked about it a little bit before, but like you guys, I'm really glad you guys are doing this. Obviously there's nothing going on as far as sports that we can really get into, but I wanted to say how fortunate you guys are. You've had a lot of your old teammates on there. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play college sports. And so, for me, all this, camaraderie stuff kind of ended in high school. And man, it's really cool to see you guys getting on with former teammates, sharing good times that you had and the stories. And I feel like I've experienced a lot of this because of the stories that you've told me over the years. And, picking up the hitchhiker, man, I laugh my butt off every time you guys tell that story. I mean, and then the coach getting flashed. I mean, I heard that one too. It's just like, I'm really, you guys are super fortunate to have what you guys have experienced. And I'm hope that you guys will have me back when we talk about the Reds. If you want me to come on with any other team that maybe you have a gap on, I'd love to do it. But you guys, I've watched every episode. I appreciate what you guys are doing. And thanks for having me on. Yeah,
man. We appreciate you, Matt. Matt's the cornerstone of our fantasy baseball league. And I appreciate it. It honestly seems like you're one of the guys. We appreciate you coming on and doing a good job with the Pirates. That's a tough draw, but you did an awesome job.
Yeah, I second that, Matt. Thanks a lot for coming on, man. And when David said you wanted to come on for the Pirates, I was like, bring him on, man, because who wants to talk Pirates baseball? It's definitely a baseball fan, so I appreciate it, man. And I look forward to kicking your butt in fantasy this year, buddy.
Well, we'll see.
Hey, we need to do a fantasy podcast. We need to do a fantasy episode. That would be cool.
Yeah, don't let this thing stop when the season starts, man. You guys keep rolling with this thing, That's how stuff gets happening around here, man. You never know what might take off. I think it's interesting. Of course, I'm a fantasy baseball nerd, so I would definitely like to participate in that. But for sure, let's keep it rolling.
Yep, I agree.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Well, guys, with all that being said, we're gonna sign off. Appreciate everybody watching. That's all three of you. And we'll get this thing posted. Our next episode will be the Phillies, and that'll be an interesting talk. So tune in for that. But with all that being said, we'll sign off.